that diet, and we are speaking to November 2017, which is a case on Tostol Drinks, Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. So the case study paper, like I said, is a written exams and is not a calculation paper. It's a technical paper. It's a technical exams in the sense that it's easy to pass and it's also very easy to fail. We need to pay attention to some very specific details on how to address the case study or the ICAN case study paper. Okay, so in looking at the examination or the examiner's report, I would like to read through the examiner's report so that we can understand the pitfalls before we go into the debrief session and look at how to address such a question. And don't forget, for your information, the pre-seen for 2025 is out. So let's leverage on these report writing skills, these debrief sections, to be able to understand how to attempt the pre-seen and also the unseen on the main exam. So if you are taking the paper for the first time or you are reattempting it, you need to pay attention to some of these nuggets. As I will not just be teaching from the experience standpoint, I'll also be teaching from the standpoint of somebody that has written the exam and I passed it in first attempt with a very good score. I scored 78 in the diet I wrote, which was one of the reasons why I was employed as a tutor officially by ICAN to teach the paper. So please pay attention to these nuggets I'll be showing you, and they will help you to navigate through this paper seamlessly. So aside these November 2017 mock exams, we're also going to look at the next mock exam tomorrow. Hopefully, we're going to look at November 2024, which was last diet. Last diet paper was quite pepperish. If you attempted last diet, it was very pepperish. We're going to attempt to look at the debrief section and look at how to solve and report on that document tomorrow. Then hopefully on Sunday, we should be able to provide the analysis of the pre-seen. And if possible, also make a prediction. It's a prediction and not a certainty, because you can hardly predict ICAN exams. ICAN papers are very, very secretive and they are classified. You can hardly predict what will come out in the unseen, but we'll try to predict. So whichever way we predict, we provide the unseen that we think the examiner will provide. If it comes that way, fine. If it doesn't, well, you are well prepared. So you cannot cram and pass the case study. Actually, you have to understand what it takes and how and what to write to be able to pass the CS paper. This is very important. Okay, so I just provided that background so that we can understand what we will be going through in these next 3 days before the general exam starts and this specific paper case study will be written. Okay, like I said, we're looking at November 2017 and we're looking at Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. Quite a complex paper, very pepperish, I must admit. But then for ICAN exams, please expect the worst. If you expect the worst, you will not be fidgety or you will not be taking off balance in the examinations. Very important. So by way of the examiner's report, he said there are 2 requirements the candidates were expected to address in their report on this case. And the requirements were an evaluation of Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited, the operating performance, and taking into consideration the company's business model and the economic value added. So that EVA was a performance management tool that was tested. So we have the strategic management tools and the performance management tools based on the study text, chapter 6 of the case study material. So economic value added is a performance management tool that was tested in this question. And the B aspect requirement 2 spoke to financial due diligence on Brilliant Bottles Nigeria Limited to determine whether it is worthwhile to acquire it or not. So candidates are expected to calculate net present value to determine post-acquisition added value that will be added to Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. So the examiner said to be able to write a good report and perform very well in the paper, candidates are expected to prepare the following appendices. A, relevant financial ratios for Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. B, A, including trend analysis, taking into consideration the company's business model. And also calculation of economic value added for Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited from 2012 to 2016. C, relevant financial ratios for Brilliant Bottles Nigeria Limited, including trend analysis for 2012 to 2016. Then D, valuation of Brilliant Bottles Nigeria Limited based on net asset basis and average maintainable earnings. And E, net present value calculation to show the effect of the acquisition on the performance of Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. So candidates' performance was poor, as only few candidates scored 50% or above. And the candidates' pitfall were these: A, lack of proper understanding of the requirements of the case. B, inability to correctly calculate economic value added of Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited. C, inability to calculate correctly the appropriate performance ratios for TDNL based on its business model. Inability to carry out correct valuation of BBNL based on the two indicated valuation models. E, inability to calculate appropriate ratios correctly. F, inability to understand how to generate figures required to calculate NPV from the financial data provided. G, inability to write a good report with appropriate headings and subheadings. And finally, poor communication skill of the candidates. So these are critical points we should take note, pitfalls we need to avoid, especially as we are going to write our May 2025. So please take note of this. And he said candidates are advised to go through the previous examination pathfinders and appraise themselves with the examiner's comments so as to properly understand how to approach case study examinations. Also, candidates should come to terms with the fact that all the knowledge and skills they've gained in the subject of previous examinations will be needed while dealing with the case study material for examinations. Okay. Aisha, you're welcome to the call. I can see Aisha is our regular AC. Aisha, welcome to the call. Nice to have you.
Are we regular now? Everyone.
You're welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
All right. How is the reading? How is the preparation? The tension is mounting with the release of the pre-scene.
It's not funny. So we're hopeful.
Exactly. So don't worry. Let's use this mock exam 3, mock exam 4. Then when we do the pre-scene analysis, we use it to navigate the paper. I believe the pre-scene is going to be easier than last diet because he's not coming up with a lot of numbers. So
we're hoping and praying it will be relevant to the unseen. That's the thing. Because they are used to making it useless.
There's always a deviation from the unseen, right?
Yes.
Don't mind him. This time around, he doesn't even want you to know anything numbers. He doesn't want to disturb your brain with numbers. So he didn't even come up with financials, no SFP, no SCI, nothing.
We're just praying, I beg, they should not shock us because let my people go this time around.
Don't worry, you go this time around, you pass it. So just keep your mind open. I'm having a prediction of even the unseen, which I'm going to share. And I'm also thinking of model. He has not tested model in the last 2 nights. So we're going to look at models, but please keep your mind open. And whatever it is we predict, whatever unseen we come up with during our analysis, take it as face value. Don't cram it. Don't assume, okay, he may come up with it. If he comes up with it in the exam, fine. If he doesn't, keep your mind open to both requirements and you'll be able to navigate
free fall.
I have this feeling that with what he brought, looking at sustainability and a manufacturing company, I think it's going to be navigatable. It's going to be easier than the tourism, agriculture he has brought out in previous diet. I think a manufacturing question is a bit much more. Looking at the 2 diets he has tested manufacturing, they are a bit easy and navigatable. So let's believe and hope for the best.
Oh, I hope for, I believe in.
Yeah, let's hope for the best. Okay, so let's come back to the subject. So looking at this Tostol Drinks now, the appendix was actually very pepperish, very, very pepperish, because he tested the unimaginable, and what he expected us to do at appendix level was he won't do this in the current dispensation. But then I believe we should be very, very prepared for anything in the requirements. So I'll go to the requirements now and show you what, based on the question he asked us to do. So this is the requirement on the screen. He said we should we should perform an appraisal of Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited's performance in the past 5 years. So we have a financial statements of 2012 to 2016, if you look at the document on the platform. And he said, based on the company's business model, we should also include additional value added to the shareholders of TDNL using economic value added approach. So he asked us to do our performance appraisal and also use that model to appraise the 5-year financial statements. So it was a pepperish thing, and it was a pepperish question or requirement. The second part, he said, a report on the financial due diligence of the target acquisition, which is Brilliant Bottles Nigeria Limited, to determine its future performance, whether the acquisition will result in increase in TDNL's shareholders' value. He said we should also recommend the range of prices that TDNL should offer to the shareholders of BBNL based on the share valuation models agreed with the board of BBNL. Quite two pepperish requirements, very, very pepperish, but then it's navigatable, very navigatable. Okay, so let's look at the requirements, the appendix. So the first thing is you are supposed to start with an appendix. You're supposed to start with the calculation of your basis for writing. The appendix does not carry much marks. All the calculation in the appendix is 8 marks maximum without writing. So the appendix is the basis for which you write. Case study is a writing exams, it's not a calculation exams. So you need to be able to provide a foundation for which you write. So in looking at the appendix, you need to perform appraisal, like he said, of the past 5 years. So if you look at exhibit, if you look at exhibit 4, you see a summarized financial statement of TDNL. And you have for 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. You have the performance statement from revenue down to profit after tax. And you have the position statement from assets and equity and liabilities. So exhibit 5 provided us with that whole exhibit 4 provided us with that whole information. So we need this information to appraise TDNL. And we also have additional information on depreciation, on profit before income and tax. We also have personnel information, social responsibility report, dividend declared, authorized and issued share capital. We also have inventories ranging from finished goods, raw materials, components, and we also have retained earnings based on the information added for TDNL. Quite a robust financial statement, and it was a full question, very, very full. It was one of the toughest diets, November 2017. So in preparing our ratio, the first thing we should perform is trend analysis. And don't forget, you have 1 hour to perform these calculations. So for requirement 1, 30 minutes for the calculation, and for requirement 2, another 30 minutes. So these calculations look very challenging, but then they are navigatable if you practice. Very, very challenging. So the first thing was to do trend analysis for the 5 years. So you compare 2012 to 2013 and look at the change in value and percentage. So what's the change in revenue, the change in cost of sales, the change in gross profit? What is the change in value, and what is the change in percentage? So you have for 2012, 978 million, and it grew to 1,167 in 2013. So the change is 1 87.5, and you have 19.1% increase. So if you look at the solution on page 33, there's a tutorial step-by-step that I prepared for you. It's not part of the solution of the examiner. I showed you the solution on how to navigate or prepare a trend analysis. So what is a trend analysis? It helps us to understand how financial metrics like revenue, expenses, profits, and asset items have changed over time. So it involves recording the base year, calculate the year over year, change in both absolute naira and percentage terms, just like you can see in the appendix. So for 2012, I provided a roadmap using 2012 as a benchmark so that you can calculate 2013, 2014, 15, 16. You can use it to practice. So the first step is to extract your relevant data for each year from the financial statements and arrange it in row by item. So you have revenue, cost of sales, profits, and you provide the columns based on the year asked. So if the examiner asks you 3-year financial statement, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, you provide that column for each year. So you calculate year in, year out, and the formula for calculating change is the current year value minus the previous value divided by the current year value, or the percentage. So you can do the same thing for each year. So we're taking for 2012, and for 2012 we have a revenue of 976 million, and we have for 2013 an increase to 1.1 billion. So 1.1 minus 979 is about 187.5. Then the third step is to calculate the change over the year. So the percentage change of the current divided by the previous will give us our value in percentage. So it's very simple, and we need to repeat for all the other years, 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016. But we just give a baseline for 2012, and we provided step-by-step calculations for that. So this is for revenue. And you can do that for all the other items from cost of sales. You do the same thing for the items based on the financial statement that was provided in the exhibits. So having done that, we need to also look at that same pattern down from we need to look at that pattern from gross profit up down to profit after income taxes. So you see the solution provided for 2012, 2013, and that's typically how to calculate the change to get your trend analysis. So under exam condition, the time will be the problem to compute this under that short time. So that's why practice is very important. So having done that, you need to do the same. Yes, please, Aisha, go ahead.
We should do the trend for every item on the income statement.
Mm-hmm. Not just income statement, plus the statement of financial position, all the 5 years.
We'll do all the trends and
the percentage change and the value change, the amounts.
Wow.
It was terrible. We have not even come to the pepperish part though. Just hold on and see, because we are looking at the appendices one by one. I know he will not do this in recent diets, but for practice sake, just understand what he has been presented before. Yes, please.
Sorry to drag you again.
No problem.
I didn't know there was an unseen again. Like you release the unseen. I worked based on the pre-seen you sent initially.
Oh, okay. There was an unseen. No, there was an unseen.
I didn't see that.
Oh.
I only worked based on the pre-seen, and that was what I submitted.
Wow, that means your information, you will not do requirement 2, because the unseen, the pre-seen was requirement 1 mostly, then the unseen covered part of the requirement 2. Okay, so you need to practice with the solution. When we share this solution today, you need to practice and go back. So when I mark and assess your script, just make sure you simulate the same thing and read through to understand the other second part that was off. All right, it's fine. So it's good to know. Thank you very much for bringing that information to my attention. Okay, so we need to do the trend analysis first in evaluating their performance for the 5 years, and you have to be very fast. Then the SFP also, the same format for 5 years. Compare property and equipment between 2012-2013, check the change and the percentage. You do that down to retained earnings, and you do that down to liabilities. Very Herculean task. And that is why the people that wrote this diet were really, they were under hot tension, I'm very sure. And the performance was actually clear. It was very, very poor. So after doing trend analysis, like we've seen how to do it, I've provided a tutorial on how to go about all of them. Then in evaluating the performance, you also need to, based on the next table, prepare a common size analysis. That's another pepperish part of the question. Common size in evaluating performance of the analysis. So a common size expresses each item in the financial statement as a percentage of a base item to help you easily compare performance over time with other companies, regardless of the size. So for Tostol Drinks, it means you want to compare the common size of the income statement and the statement of financial position. And we have for 5 years, 2012 to 2016. So in looking at this tutorial, you need to look at the base. What is the base? And the base has to be 100%. So if you go back to the financial statement, the revenue is 976. So you have to convert this 976 to 100%. So in converting that to 100%, you need to look at the conversion ratio. How do you convert it? So the base is 100%, then all other figures are divided by the revenue. So you need to assume that the revenue is 100%. So in looking at cost of sales now, you have 5.86 million. You divide it by 10,000 or 100 to have the percentage. So what we are saying is in calculating common size, revenue is the base, which is 100%. Then cost of sales is a percentage of that revenue. So in looking at 976 as 100%, we'll now use cost of sales as the figure of the percentage of revenue. And that's how to do a common size analysis. So you do 100%, then each item after revenue will now be a subset of the revenue base. So follow through this tutorial. You can see here I said the base is 100%. So using the example of 2012, we have cost of sales. After converting it, we have 5.8, gross profit 4.1, 1.4, marketing and distribution, down to net profit, which is 1.9. And we did the percentage each under having the revenue as the base to get the percentages each. So if you look at this table, okay, if you look at this table here, you see that the revenue was provided down to the profit after tax and the percentages. So the common size is trying to tell us what weight of each line item was very heavy. So in this case, you see that cost of sales is 58%, followed by gross profit 41%. Then we have profit before tax 21%. Then we have profit after tax 19%. So the challenge is going to be the time to compute this one by one under exam condition. So that's for the revenue aspect, or the performance statement, which is the income statement aspect. Then for the statement of financial position, the base is going to be your assets. Asset is going to be 100%. So you need to convert all the asset item from property, plant, and the total asset is going to be your base. Total asset is going to be 100%. Then each line item under fixed asset, current asset is going to now be a percentage or a subset. So our total asset we assume is 100%, which is 100 million. We'll now say property, plant, and equipment is a percentage of that 100 million. So we have PPE 71%, inventory 12%, trade receivables 12%, 14%. So the income statement and the cost of sales, for example, item is a base of 100%, and that base is revenue. And for balance sheet item, the base is total asset. So walk through these computations and just practice with it. And why are we practicing is just to, in case in the next in this May 2025, we see something like this. You can't downplay the fact that anything is examinable under case study. So just practice, look at the figures, how it was generated, so that under exam conditions, you'll be able to navigate it very seamlessly. So it's very important. So he tested, or he asked for a common size analysis in assessing the performance of Tostol drinks. So common size analysis was one of the appendices. All right, so the third table, or the third computation under that same requirement one, is ratio analysis. And the ratios were computed across 4 components: profitability, liquidity, activity, and solvency. 4 ratios. And you're expected to do this in, is it 30 minutes? So it is practically very challenging, very, very challenging. So let's practice with this. And the ratios involved profitability ratio. So we used, I gave you a tutorial here, and I used the 2012 figures to calculate gross profit margin. They're actually simple ratios. The only challenge is the time. So gross profit margin, looking at gross profit divided by revenue, and you do that for 5 years. You can see the net profit margin, the same thing, net profit divided by revenue, and you get your figure. And for return on assets, net profit divided by total assets, and you get your percentage. For return on capital employed, net profit divided by capital employed, looking at your total assets as the capital employed minus current liabilities is the formula. And we have return on equity, net profit divided by the equity for shareholders, give us our percentage. So we are done with the profitability ratios for 2012. Then the liquidity ratios are only 3. Our current ratio, which is current asset less current liabilities, or divided by current liabilities to have the ratio. And in 2012, it was less than 1. Then for quick asset ratio, we remove inventory, which also reduced the bottom line or the outcome to a further less than 5. And we have the cash ratio that also reduced to a further less than 4 to 1. So that's for the liquidity ratios. Then for the activity ratios, we have net assets, looking at revenue divided by net asset looking at the total assets less total liabilities. That's what net assets speaks to. The next one is fixed asset turnover, revenue divided by the fixed assets, speaking to non-current assets only. The total assets turnover speaks to revenue divided by only total assets, speaking to current and non-current. And inventory turnover speaks to cost of goods sold divided by inventory. And inventory is looking at beginning plus ending divided by 2. So inventory should be average inventory. Don't forget that. And that speaks to 5, 1, 2. That speaks to 5 activity ratios that were calculated. And for the solvency ratios, we spoke to debt to equity ratio, which is total debt divided by equity. And we also spoke to total debt to equity ratio also, which is total debt divided by total debt plus equity. And we spoke to interest cover, which is earnings before interest and tax divided by interest expense. And we have the percentage also. Then another ratio that especially was tested was personnel ratios. They are not popular ratios. Speaking to staff turnover, which was provided in the figure, look at Appendix 3, Exhibit 4 on the screen. You will see that an additional information was provided, and we have on this page, we have personnel information. And we have for 5 years, number of staff, retirements, resignations in the year and the least paid staff. So that necessitated the ratios we have to calculate on personnel. So we look at staff turnover, number of staff departures, an average number of employees, and we have a percentage of it for 2012. So you do that for 5 years. Then we have average profit after tax per staff. So we are calculating the average profit compared to the number of staff in the establishment. And we have it at 0.9 million. Then we also have social responsibility ratios. These are classified ratios that are not popular, but was tested in the question. So we need to, in our learning, really understand them very practically. So we have the social responsibility expenditure divided by pre-tax profit, and that is about 2.38%. This ratio indicates the percentage of pre-tax profit spent on social responsibility activities. Very important. So that speaks to all the ratios you can see on this appendix. And usually the ratios are supposed to be provided in tables. It's recommended to provide them in tables. And for the economic value added, we have the tutorial here. And you know that economic value added is a tool that measures the company's performance based on residual wealth. So speaking to the value created beyond just a return for the shareholders, you need to cover the cost of the capital provided. And the express formula speaks to net operating profit after tax less the cost of capital. So we've provided step-by-step calculation for you to reinforce and remember this formula. And looking at the appendices, you see that the net profit was provided, and we added expenses, the net expenses of taxation. We'll add it back to our net profit to arrive at the actual net profit before taxation. Then we'll have to deduct our capital, which includes the cost of capital. I'll also deduct the adjusted net profit, and we'll less the cost of capital to arrive at our value added. So this is a step-by-step tutorial you can see on page 42, starting from page 42, to help you navigate the calculations and reinforce or remember the steps in case you meet it. So this is it step by step. There's the step 2, the step 3, and the 5 years were calculated, and the bottom line, the results was provided. So key takeaways is that the economic value added is increasing year on year, and once the value is increasing, it shows that there's value creation. If it's reducing, there's value erosion in that company. So the company consistently earns profit more than its cost of capital. So we need to add back interest before tax, since it's a financing cost. So the net operating profit after tax reflects only operations. So that speaks to requirement A, and the calculations were pepperish because I struggle with understanding how under 30 minutes you can perform these calculations based on the requirement. I struggle with the examiner, and I don't think after this diet he has brought something very pepperish like this. From 2017, there's no appendix that is this tough. But then prepare for the worst. I always tell students, I tell candidates, prepare for the worst in ICAN. So get used to the calculation, go back, recalculate them, understand common size analysis, understand ratio analysis, reinforce that knowledge so that you'll be able to write. Because no matter how much you calculate, there are no marks that are significant in the calculation. Like I said, everything you've done now on these appendices, ranging from trend down to common size, down to the ratio analysis, and down to the EVA you calculated is 4 marks without any input. Everything you did here is 4 marks. So I struggle to understand how under exam conditions somebody can navigate this, but then I don't think you will do that in recent dispensations. All right, so having looked at the calculation of Appendix 1, let's go and speak to the numbers where the marks are. Okay, so after you've done your appendix, which is the first thing you do under the exam condition, you need to start writing. I suggest you do Appendix 1, then you go and write. And if you want to do both appendix, fine. Whatever approach works for you, please employ it. So our requirement asks us to, our requirements asked us to, let me go back to the requirement again so that we can read it verbatim. Okay, so the requirement says carry out an appraisal of our financial performance or TDNL's financial performance, taking into consideration the model. We need to know how we are faring, and we need to use EVA to perform this financial performance. So looking at the answers, look at my report on the screen now. You'll see that I summarized that requirement and I said an appraisal of Tostol Drinks Nigeria Limited performance in the past 5 years based on the company's business model, including the additional value added to the shareholders of TDNL using EVA approach. So you are summarizing the requirements as a header. And that is why the challenge the examiner provided in the examiner's report, he said candidates always have issues with providing headers and subheaders. So funny enough, you see candidates writing requirement 1 as a header. Requirement 1 is not a header. Or financial statement analysis, that is not a header. And if you do that under exam condition, you're going to be marked down. Please take note of it. So quote the requirement in summary form, very simple. Quote the requirement, don't say financial statement analysis or requirement 1 as that is not a header. So please quote the requirement verbatim. This is very important to note. Don't make that mistake in the May 2025 exams, please. So we have 8 boxes, and the 8 boxes speaks to the headers and subheaders you are supposed to follow as a format in writing your report. So as you want to speak to this appendix, you have 8 boxes, and I call them 8 headers and subheaders in writing your report. So now, the first header or the first box, I call it the general overview or analysis of information. So you are trying to speak to data and information as a header. And the data doesn't necessarily mean numerical data. They could mean general data that speaks to the information provided to you in the exhibits. And you can bring that to the fore to earn 1 mark. So each box provides you with superior achievements, which is 4 commercial valuable points you should talk about. So each boxes have separate headers, and I've provided those specimens in each of my reports. If you look at all the diets that are on my YouTube channel and the reports that are attached in the description, you always see that I followed the format of the examiner. There are other methods anyway. Some tutors will advise, or some tutors teach you that you shouldn't use those headers except for ethical considerations and conclusion and recommendation. They are correct. But I prefer these headers because they give me the marks seamlessly. Following that 8 boxes method of the examiner, I'm not writing sporadically without headers and for subheaders except for ethical considerations, conclusion and recommendation. If I follow this format of the examiner, it's easy to pass. It's very easy. So the choice is yours as candidates. If you want to use the other method of providing just 3 headers, ethical considerations, conclusions and recommendations, it's fine. You can still pass the case study paper. But I prefer these 8 headers. I like and I teach this method. So both of them are okay, they are good methods, but I prefer this one because in my opinion, they provide seamless way to pass the case study paper. All right, so the first header, I call it general overview, and you are trying to speak to data and information, and I name it general overview. Some of my reports you look at, you may see analysis of information, business overview, whatever resonates with you, please use it as a header. And what are you looking at? You're looking at general information about the company you're talking about. So like in Tostol Drinks now, we said the first point, and please number your points either with Roman numeral or alphabet so that you can pick them seamlessly. Don't write in generalistic form. You make it hard to make the examiner give you the points. Now, when you are writing exams, be very point conscious, even if it's not case study. For other papers, what you write for a 12-mark question is different from what you write for a 6 marks or 3 marks question. So detail them, number them appropriately so that he can give you the marks easily. So don't write like scattergun. Write specifics, numbered, stratify them to provide those points. So if you look at to earn superior achievement in this first box, I spoke to general overview of Tostol Drinks. I said Tostol Drinks is focusing on increasing shareholder value and is acquiring BBNL as part of backward integration strategy. So I said it's also using for the 5 years EVA to assess shareholder value growth, which will inform the strategic plan. Don't forget you are writing to the board. So you are providing a general overview to what transpires in the case. So you can see with A, I picked 1 mark in the general overview. Very simple. Then B, I spoke to a strategic development plan for TDNL, focusing on acquiring BBNL. And the company has made significant investment in marketing, development channels to strengthen its position in the market, looking at improving and increasing production capacity with this acquisition, aligning with its goals to maximize shareholders' return. So you can see the second point, the second comment I made or discussion, pick two, we have 2 points now under this header. And for the third aspect, I spoke to the financial statements provided before even the calculations, saying that TDNL indicates in their financial statements strong growth trajectory with increasing revenue driven by larger market share and efficient cost management strategies. So just looking at the financials here in Exhibit 4, I've not done any calculation, but I'm already speaking to the fact that the financial statements for the 5 years speaks to a positive growth trajectory. So you can see that from the revenue from 9.979 in 2012 moved to 1.1, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. And that informed my narrative here that it indicates a strong growth trajectory with increasing revenue driven by larger market share and efficient cost management. So I concluded that TDNL investment in production capacity, marketing penetration, appearing to be paying off, positioning the company for sustained financial stability and growth. So in these general discussions, you can see we are just picking information from the financial statements and the general non-financial information to write. And I spoke the D aspect, key strategy actions taken by TDNL to optimize operational efficiency and market presence. You see that these operational costs have risen, but the company remains focused in maximizing returns through improved economies of scale and brand recognition. So let your communication resonate with what is in the exhibit. And as you are writing, depict what is in the exhibit, put it in this general information. So I gave you about 5, but then if you speak to 4 for each header, you are okay. Because you have 4 good commercial points, you get superior achievement. If you write 3, you are competent. If you write 2 is below competence. Then if you write 1, there's no competence. And if you don't write anything, that is void. And that's the way you are assessed. You are marked based on the case study. So looking at the general overview, I've picked 4 marks just from the exhibit and discussion. So take note of that. So that's for the first header. Then the second header, you are now going to use professional tools to discuss. And that's the second header. And I call it business performance. So the tools you use to perform the calculation of the financial statement is what you transcribe into discussion. And that is your ratio analysis, your trend analysis, your common size analysis, and the EVA. So don't forget your appendices does not earn you any marks. What earns you the marks is your discussion. So we want to pick 4 marks in using our professional tools to discuss. So now looking at TDNL's profitability ratios, we said it reflected a consistent, strong and improving performance over the years. Like speaking to gross profit margin, it grew from 41% to 47% in 2016. So you can quote and also speak to the fact that each ratio you want to talk about reference the appendix. So you can say I spoke to a variety of ratios from gross margin, I spoke to return on assets, return on capital employed, And I said, although return on equity declined by 84% to 64%, it remains impressively high, reflecting strong earnings relative to shareholders' equity. So I quoted the appendix. So this second header speaks to the tools you used and how you're able to speak to them in the narrative. So I picked one point, and that is why I named it A. Then B, I said, also looking at the activity ratios in this appendix. I said the B aspect, that TDNL demonstrated efficiency in asset utilization over the years, speaking to net asset turnover, fixed asset turnover, and also inventory turnover. Then I referenced the appendix. So please reference your appendix in whatever ratios you are quoting in the second aspect. Then the C aspect, I also spoke to trend analysis. Trend analysis is the first table we calculated. So I said, using the trend analysis revealed consistent growth in revenue, rising from this amount to this amount, and is driven by steady improvements in gross profit and profit after tax. And I said you should see the appendix. So trend analysis, just one point you use to speak to that. I don't need to write in detail. Then also the common size analysis speaks to the common size we calculated in the second table of the appendices. And we said the common size analysis shows improvement in profitability, and this common size shows that the company demonstrates overall financial stability, profitability, and operational efficiency over the period. So it's just a summary of what we've calculated that we are speaking to pick 4 marks. So under the second header, which is business performance, in speaking to professional tools you used, we have picked 4 marks with 4 superior arguments or narratives here. So please quote the appendix when you're doing that. Then for the third header, we've looked at 2 headers now. For the third header, the examiner is testing your analytical skills, and you're analyzing either the trend or how the company has performed over the years. So in speaking to that, I call that business analysis. So any header that resonates with you, use it. Just know that you're trying to display your analytical skills in this third header. So we said that Tostol Drinks showed steady growth in operating performance between these 5 years. We used gross profit margin as a yardstick. We also used profit before tax, or after tax, or revenue. Any way you are able to discuss a trend in any of the very important components, speak to them. And we said it suggests a healthy and gradual improving operating performance driven by better margin management and enhanced operational efficiency. So we quoted the appendix also. We also talked about the B aspect, speaking to key performance indicators relevant to Tostol's business model. And we said that the KPIs ranging from gross profit margin, and every other parameter we speak to are collectively showing a well-managed, profitable, and financial stable business. So that's what we are speaking to in this B aspect. And in displaying our analytical skills, we are saying that the economic value added, the third point, is the measure we used is very good. We're trying to explain the model in this third point, saying that EVA helps assess managerial effectiveness in deploying capital efficiently, and is often used as a tool for performance evaluation and investment decision making. So we are describing the model. Then now, in speaking to the model in actual numbers, we are saying that Tostol Drinks consistently generated positive EVA. It rose from 117 in 2012 to 252 in 2016. And we quoted the appendix saying that the growth of the EVA suggests increasing shareholder wealth and effective management decision in driving long-term economic profitability for the company. So we've spoken to 3, and we have 12 marks already for the 3 headers. So now the challenges and considerations is the 4th point, speaking to issues and options based on the examiner's format. So what are the issues and what are the options? What are the challenges and what to consider in the case? So the first point we are saying as A is that the financial analysis of TDNL is limited by the absence of industry comparative. So without benchmarks for peer companies, it's difficult to assess whether TDNL's performance metrics, such as profitability, cost, can be measured. So that could be a challenge we are speaking to. And the second point, we said the market share within the soft drink industries is not disclosed. So we don't have disclosure of market share. Like in the current pre-scene now, you see that the current company, Debrief, we are looking at in the pre-scene, has market share. There are other companies sharing the market in that pre-scene, if you read one of the exhibits. So this is a challenge we are bringing to the fore in this case study, that there is no market share provided. Then the C aspect, we said, or the third point, the size of the software drinks in the industry of TDNL operated is not provided. So the size, understanding the market size also is not provided, which is a challenge in making us to perform our analysis. And the fourth point, I said there's no information on the company's positive relationship or relationship with competitors or its competitors that are driving that industry. So there's no information on that, which could be a challenge for us to benchmark this company. So I gave you another E and saying that the company does not have a competition or competitive profile, looking at the SWOT and its threats and all that. So these could be challenges or considerations. And once you state 4, you get your 4 marks. So we have 4 headers now, and 4 times 4 is 16 marks we've generated for this write-up. And for ethical issues, which is very important. So if you decide not to use this format of the first header to the fourth header, this last critical issue is very important. The ethical issues must have a separate header. The examiner said you must discuss ethical issues because they are found in the case. They are not expressed, they are not explicitly stated as, there's no requirement that comes as ethical issues, but you must identify ethical issues and discuss it as a separate header. So please take note of it. This one is a compulsory header. The other 4 aspects I just spoke about are voluntary headers. You can decide to use them. You can decide not to use them and still pass the case study paper. So for the ethical issues, one of the issues we found out is that the audit status of the financial statement was not disclosed. And it's not stated whether the financial statement was audited or not. And that speaks to the accuracy and independent verification and in compliance with IFRS standards. So that's an ethical issue we need to point out to any mark. Also, another issue is the unclear cause of growth in operating performance. This may not be an ethical issue, but it's a critical issue, speaking to the fact that the consistent growth in performance is unclear. Is it driven by internal operational efficiency or general expansion of market price? We can't state or attribute the source of this growth, which is essential in assessing the sustainability of the company's business success. So that one is a critical issue. And we are applying our professional skepticism in that header. And the third point we stated is lack of industry average for benchmarking. We're saying that the absence of industry average, like we stated in the challenges and consideration, is also an issue, so that we can compare apples to apples and also perform depth analysis to see what it is. So whatever features as a challenge and consideration can also feature as an ethical or critical issue, depending on how you present the point. Then the fourth area we spoke about is no indication in share value movement, speaking to the fact that there was no information regarding the movement in the share value of TDNL, and it reflects the evaluation of shareholder wealth creation. So this gap, we said, is a challenge in assessing the market performance. So if you provide 4 points for the ethical issues, you pick 4 marks seamlessly. And this ethical issue is very mandatory. We discuss that. And there are not just 4 of them. If you read through the case, there are others. So just state 4 that resonates with you and pick your 4 marks. Then finally, the 6th header, based on the format of the examiner, is we are displaying evaluative skills and judgment. How do we provide judgment and evaluate the pros and cons, the positive and negatives in the case? So I call that header risk assessment or evaluation of findings. You see my reports, some of them have those separate headers. And in speaking to risk assessment, we are saying that the yearly performance is increasing based on revenue and other parameters. And we said the performance has shown an upward trend. But this positive trend or trajectory suggests sound financial management and operational growth. But there's a risk in sustaining this momentum in the face of market volatility or internal efficiencies that may emerge if controls weaken. So you're trying to pick out the positive risk or negative risk. And in risk assessment, you look at negative risk as threats and positive risk as opportunities. So have risk in mind, in perspective, when you are dealing with this header or this separate header, if you choose to use them. Then the next point I spoke to about is the adherence to the business model with the shareholders in focus. And we spoke to the stakeholder-centric approach, and this has implications on long-term stability. Though the risk remains that the overall diversifying stakeholder interest without strategic focus could dilute competitive advantage. So we've spoken to that stakeholder area. And the next thing is the dividend payout ratio, saying that for the company to maintain a high dividend payout ratio, it needs to reflect a commitment to rewarding shareholders and this signals strong cash generation. But it poses a risk of depleting internal values or reserves like your retained earnings needed for investments, especially in capital-intensive growth period. So we're looking at the payout of dividends to shareholders year on, year out, and we spoke to that as from the risk perspective. And the last point is, on the fourth one to achieve our superior achievement is dependence on long-term borrowing due to high dividend payout. So we said the company's reliance on long-term borrowing to fund its expansion is likely a result of maintaining high dividend distribution. And the financial risk of this is increased leverage and interest obligations, which could impact profitability if earnings do not scale proportional debt levels. So these are the risks, positive or negative, that we're able to identify, and we pick 4 marks for that. And you see, we're already 6 times 4, 24 marks. I haven't spoken to this. Then finally, very important is your conclusion. After all the discussion, please, you need to conclude and recommend, which is very pivotal. So ethical issues as a header is very important. Conclusion and recommendation, you must, without which you are not going to pass case study. Take note, if there is no conclusion and recommendation, the examiner has said it, you will not pass case study, no matter what you write. So please take note of that. And for the conclusion, we concluded that the level of growth of shareholders' value reflects a strong capacity to generate wealth and indicates efficient management of operations from what we have seen. So that's the first point we spoke to. And we concluded on the need to manage receivables, saying that they should optimize working capital because receivables, if gotten on time, will be able to support ongoing operations and activities without resorting to external financing. And the third part, we said, paying suppliers promptly. They should be able to mitigate strained relationships or favorable credit terms and avoid disruption of their supply chain by paying creditors promptly. Then the last or the fourth point we said is shareholder value analysis. The analysis of shareholder value reveals that the company is on a strong footing and that the operational efficiency, the stakeholder engagement will be critical in sustaining the shareholders' long-term wealth. So we concluded on 4. There are others, but take the most important and also recommend. Your recommendation should be like a solution to whatever it is you concluded on. So our recommendation, we're saying the first point, they should continuously improve on this performance. We said they should target reducing their operation expenses by at least 5% over the next 12 months through process automation. So your recommendation should be SMART. What does it mean by SMART? It should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be attainable, it should be realistic, and it should be time-bound. And that is why you see, if you see the second line, I said specific target to reduce operating expenses at least 5%. You are specific. And over a 12-month period is realistic and time-bound. And you are saying it's measurable through process. So you can't just recommend and say sustain improvement as they have done. That is no recommendation. This has to be SMART. It should follow those 5 parameters. And that's why we put specifics. It's attainable, realizable, it's measurable. And that's why your recommendation should be smart to earn the marks. Then for the B aspect, we said industry benchmarking for competitive strategy. I was recommending that with a specific target of about 60 days, the goal is to gather insights on pricing, product innovation, customer service, and operational strategies on how to align the company with strategic planning cycle. And this should be reviewed annually for relevance and updates. And the third recommendation, we said TDNL should maintain its proven business model by placing strategic emphasis on reducing cost of sales. And they should do this by identifying wastage, optimizing production process. It will help them sustain value in the long term without compromising quality. And finally, we said dividend policy adjustment. We recommended that their dividend policy payout should reduce, or it should be around 10 to 15% starting from the next year to retain more earnings for reinvestment. It will enable the company to finance its expansion plans internally and reduce reliance on external borrowing and strengthen its capital structure for future growth. So if you're giving 4 recommendations, you have 32 marks for everything you've done here. So 4 recommendations, 4 marks, 4 times 8 headers is 32 marks. So you pick 32 marks on your discursive elements, which is what the case study exam is all about. It's a writing exam, so you need to be able to write in this way. So whatever format you are using, please make sure you write very well. Let your writing not be scanty. You will not earn the marks. Yes, you need to ensure that your writing is very, very adequate to be able to earn the marks. So read through this report that I'll be sharing and follow through the story, follow through the pattern, follow through the headers and subheaders, and make your decision. It's now your decision that will determine what you write in the main exams. So having spoken to the discursive aspect of 32 marks, let's now go to the executive summary. Executive summary speaks to the summary of what you've discussed in the discursive aspect we just spoke to. So the executive summary for requirement 1, we said from the executive summary, you have to have the introduction, just short introduction of what the both requirements speak to. The method of analysis, you speak to your assumptions, your reservations, and you also speak to requirement 1's findings and requirement 1's conclusion and recommendation. So that's the format. And if you don't do an executive summary, you are not going to pass case study. Executive summary is a must. It's a prerequisite to passing case study. So please take note of that. You must have an executive summary and it takes 20 marks. So whatever you write, if you score 32 marks each in requirement 1 and 2, and you don't have an executive summary, you are not going to pass case study. You'll be marked down. So make sure you summarize what you discussed is a prerequisite. This is very important. Okay, so looking at the format, we spoke to the introduction saying the aim of the report is to evaluate the performance of the company, looking at requirement 1. We've summarized requirement 1 and also financial due diligence requirement 2. So in your introduction, just summarize the requirements in 3 lines. Your introduction should not be long. I mark a lot of scripts and you see people's introduction very long. Don't forget your executive summary must not go more than 2 pages. Minimum 1 page, maximum 2. If you go more than 2, 3 pages, you'll be marked down. The case study is clear. Executive summary is 2 pages maximum, minimum 1 page. I even see some tutors do 3 pages and I'm wondering, did you not read the case study text? Why are you doing 3 pages? And these are known, proven, very good tutors. So please don't go against the examiner's instruction. 2 pages max. The essentials is what you capture. The executive summary is the essentials of your discussion. You are not telling us detail. It's a snapshot of your main document. So as we've spoken to the introduction, 3 lines, the method of analysis. You can see we stated the method we use: trend, common size, ratio, economic value added, and for requirement 2, net present value analysis. That is all. You don't need story. Then we said all calculations are found in the appendix. Simple. If you go to the appendix that is here, You see all the calculations. Then we spoke to our assumptions and maybe reservations. If you have any, you don't need to tell us stories on that. Like I said, this report assumes that TDNL is in its maturity state of its life cycle. That's all. That's what I assumed. Looking at the growing nature of its financial statements and what they did, their position and their performance, we said they are growing. That's our conclusion or our assumption. Or it's maturing. They are in their maturity state of the life cycle. So whatever assumption comes to your mind, please state it there. So we want to talk about 2 findings because each requirement is 10 marks. So 2 findings. So we said the first finding is that the company is increasing shareholder value in the process of acquiring that target, which is BBNL, as part of its backward integration. 2 lines. Then we said the financial statement shows that the company has strong growth trajectory and has increased revenue, which is driven by larger market share and efficient cost. So 2 findings, two lines, and it's okay. Then very importantly, the conclusion. So the 4 we stated, you just summarize that conclusion in 4 lines. So we said the company has demonstrated commendable and sustainable growth in shareholder value. 1 conclusion. 2nd line, it must prioritize effective receivables management. It should pay suppliers timely. It should strongly, it's on a strong financial footing. It should consistently add value through profitability and strategic capital utilization. That's what we've concluded in short 4 lines. So to achieve superior achievement, state 4. Then for recommendation, we are saying that the company should continuously improve its operational performance, like we said, reiterated in the conclusion. Then it should maintain its proven business model. It should reduce its dividend payout. It should conduct a structured industry benchmarking exercise to identify what top performing firms in the sector are doing. Very, very short line. And when you do that, you have 8 points plus your findings and everything. You pick your 10 marks very seamlessly. So the conclusion is very short and to the point. Very, very important. Okay, so that will be it for requirement 1. I haven't spoken to the requirement and we've summarized in our executive summary. So we just spoke to the appraisal of the company's performance in the past 5 years based on the company's model using EVA also to check the value added to shareholders. So before we run to requirement 2, any question on the discursive aspect, especially for us that are just joining? I know Aisha is used to our format. Any challenge with the format, any challenge with the presentation, any challenge with the communication, please, let's discuss now. You can unmute your mic and speak freely. Any challenge, any contribution, any question, please feel free to ask. If you are quiet, you are trying to tell me that we understand everything hook, line, and sinker. That's what you're saying. Okay, so Aisha, how far from the report we just saw for requirement 1? What do you think?
There is problem. I'm already thinking of exit.
No, please don't exit. Case study is always like that. It always looks challenging at first, but at the end of the day,
compared to what I've written, well, compared to what I've submitted, so I even sent you a message on WhatsApp. Don't mark it though.
I'm glad this is happening. You know why? I don't want you to make this mistake in the main May exams. So please, as you read the report, I beg, attend to May 2025 very, very consciously. Be intentional about it. And that is why all these pitfalls are coming. So if we now attend to November 2017, having looked at November 2024, which is the last immediate diet, because I'm hoping we'll look at that tomorrow. When we come to the pre-scene, you'll be ever ready. Because somebody was saying that she saw location again, that please, they shouldn't do segment reporting or segment ratio like they did in last diet. So if we even see...
Honestly, I was actually praying for that, even though I didn't write last diet. But there was the
Okay.
time I wrote and there was segment, and I was like, what is this? Where are we going to? What are we going to do with all this? But anyways, there's problem.
No, there's none. We'll solve the problem. So even if you segment reporting, they come in with that ratio of segments, we'll be able to attend to it with the next debrief for November 2024. We'll look at that November 2024 and how to attempt that. So why I brought these tough diets is because I want you to see that the examiner could be very, very stubborn. So whichever way he goes with the May 2025, I want you to be ready. Expect the worst. So go through this report, read it, read how to attempt it based on his format, so that you can be ready for anything that he will bring in the May 2025 diet. I believe it's going to be a sail through, because I was happy to see that there were not much numbers. When he comes with numbers in the precinct, just know that he's going to deviate and he's going to make it very pepperish. So since he didn't come with numbers now in the precinct, then he wants you to do something different, or he's going in another direction. That's what he's doing. Okay, so thank you for that feedback, and I'm glad that once I share this solution, you read through and also practice with it. That's the objective and that's the goal. All right, so let's run. We have a few minutes to end. Aside Aisha's comment, any other comment? Any other person that is joining for the first time? Do you have any comments, any observation, anything to ask? Please feel free. Or it's please, Justina, go ahead. Please feel free to discuss. It's a debrief session, so it should be engaging. Please unmute your mic and speak, Justina. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. It's nice to have you on the call.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, I've gone through the reports. I tried drafting my own, but then this thing does not look realistic. Coupled with the time that we have in the example, I used up to 5 days just to try to cover up every part of the requirement. But then I don't think it's possible for us to do this trend analysis, common size ratio for just 8 marks. We are going to, even the 4 hours will not be enough to even do this thing. How much more reporting it or incorporating it inside the report? It's not possible. Even if no matter how fast you punch your calculator, it's not possible. Even the trend, even if you even just take five metrics, you still won't be able to finish it. Add common size with ratio, it's not still possible. Plus requirement 2, only requirement 1 step won't take all those time. How much more requirement 2, then the report, then the executive summary, under 4 hours? I don't know, it's very overwhelming.
Exactly. And this is the feeling I want. Thank you for bringing that to the fore. This is the feeling I want. I want you to feel this before the exam. Because one of the challenges, go to the exam and you see something like this, it's going to be very overwhelming. So feel the worst case scenario. This is a worst diet. And like I said, when I started, he has not come up with something like this. I'm sure maybe I can caution him. Because like you said, I'm not sure even him, you give him the exam, he cannot do this under 4 hours. So for them to go out and print something like this for candidates to write in that diet, no. It's practically impossible. But for learning and for also understanding how to go about it, he will not do it. From that November 2017, look at the trial down to the it's not as much as this. Why I chose this diet is for us to learn. Look at what scenarios he is. I mean, trend, more size, and very soon. If you look at requirement 1, let's use it to learn. Just to learn. That's what I'm saying. It's impossible. Just don't need time to be able to do it to figure out this so that you learn how to navigate it. Like conditions, I agree with you practically. Then it's possible. No matter how you are, you can't do this under 4 hours. But let's use it to learn. It's a learning curve for us. So currently, he will not set this kind of, he won't set this kind of pepper, because I call it pepper. I call it pepper. All right. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. Yes, please. Elle, go ahead. Lala, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for this. So I just want to ask, right?
Yes, please.
We are starting with the appendix. That means we must have left sufficient amount of pages, number of pages for us to write the executive summary and all of that. So the question is, what if I leave probably some amount of pages after writing, I still have some pages left in between what I have written and the appendix? What do I do with those spaces? Like, hope I won't be marked down for leaving more than enough.
Beautiful question. I love this question. And somebody asked this in the physical class I teach in Kano. Beautiful question. Now, looking at my screen, this is what solves the problem. So, just like Lola said, in starting the examination, you've mapped out page 1, cover page 2 and 3, executive summary, page 3 and 4, background, introduction and background. Then from page 5 and 6, you don't know how much you write depending on the volume of data and your communication. Very true. Now, this is what is the game changer. So in the last aspect of your report, look at my screen and pay attention. This is what solves the problem. And that is why the examiner said you should have a report outline. Even though this page is just 2 marks, but 2 marks, some people ignore doing it. That is what solves that problem of over or underwriting. So you can see the report outline states clearly the page number, and it comes after the cover page. So if you look at the cover page, is what is first presented. Then page 2 and 3 is assumably your executive summary if you are doing 2 pages or 1 page. Then this introduction page tells us where you write. So in your mapping and your planning, as you are doing your appendix, leave this page for introduction, so that when it comes to cover page, you tell him that your cover page is on page 2. Normally your cover page, is supposed to be page 1, but because I have the report, examiner's report, that is why I said my cover page here is page 2. So executive summary is 2 and 3. Introduction is 3. So this page numbering tells him that this is where your output is, your outcome and your report is. So the paging will show him that, okay, because of my planning, and I start the report from appendix, the requirement 1 and 2, maybe I didn't write or I overwrite. And when you overwrite, don't forget you need to take answer sheet and write the number on the page. So if you need to increase requirement 1 or 2 discussion, you can just take answer sheet and put the line rope in between where you write. So it now depends, you either overwrite or underwrite, depending on what you are communicating. Please number the pages appropriately. This solves that problem. So you're not going to be marked down if you put this report outline. So the examiner will follow through to say, okay, her requirement 1, her findings and discussions, she did page 7 to page 12. Okay. Then requirement 2, her finding and discussion, she did 14 to 20. So this is essentially what solves that problem, and he ignores the blank pages or whatever it is that was there. So this solves the problem. Fantastic question. I like that question. So I hope that resonates with you. Are you okay with it, Lola?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. J.O., I can see your hands up. Please go ahead. Unmute and speak.
Okay, I would like to say something based on what you just said. What we do in the exam hall is that we untie our script, like our answer sheet. We untie it. When we untie it, we'll be able to flip through. Let me say you are trying to interpret the figures. When trying to flip through, go back, come front, it's also time consuming. So once we untie it, like we untie the papers, we'll just pick out that particular one. We completed our appendix, and then we'll start drafting our report from there. That way, even if once you scatter it, you won't even have excess pages, because you'll be the one to arrange it again, do just the way you want when you want to submit. That's what I just want to say.